All right, it is 6 p.m. So I will go ahead and call this meeting of the Chartered Township of Comstock Planning Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The first item is the approval of the agenda. The only thing I think we might want to consider adding is Attorney Thal brought a recommendation for a bylaw amendment based on some of the conversation that we had previously. So I'd like to add that to the agenda for discussion.
Under which item?
We can add it under old business.
And then, Madam Chair, for the PUD public hearing, the document was not ready for packet distribution. So I don't know if you want to remove it from the agenda or just state that it will be rescheduled to the next meeting when we get to that item.
If we're not going to do it, we may as well remove it from the agenda.
Gotcha.
Are we still able to move forward with the landscaping?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're striking planned unit development, adding bylaw discussion. And I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Secretary Kreitzer. All in favor to approve the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Now on to approval of the minutes from March 26th.
I would like to see, I saw a clerical error on page 6, item number 4. I did not see where myself and Sandy Bloomfield was added in for the vote here, when it's 7-0 there. So I was wondering if we could make that change.
Absolutely. One minor typo on line 46. It says reviews have no begun, and it should be not begun.
Any other corrections? If not, we'd be looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes with the changes mentioned.
Support.
Go ahead.
Motion made by Commissioner Nichols, supported by Secretary Kreitzer, to approve the minutes from March 26, 2026 as corrected. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, we will now move on to citizen comment. A citizen may state their name and address and may speak only for one time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. The person speaking has the floor and no other citizen shall speak during someone else's time. During this time, you will be making statements to the board without discussion from the board members, but you are welcome to make an appointment with planning and zoning staff to discuss your comments further. Please keep comments clean and respectful.
Hi, I'm Emily Murphy. On the agenda tonight is a continued discussion on conditions by Soil Friends with Commissioner Bub Sherwood. It's extremely unfortunate and frankly embarrassing that a small business has to rightfully and formally request that a sitting planning commissioner be forbid to vote on Soil Friends associated business and furthermore to be removed from the planning commission altogether. Bub Sherwood continues to assume liberties that are inappropriate. I'm nervous. He is happy to share false information to our community members and beyond. Since the beginning of all this, it was obvious that Bub felt a great amount of disdain for Soil Friends. When I attended the township meeting several years ago, this was discussed in length. I don't understand why he was ever allowed to vote on issues regarding Soil Friends, as it was obvious that he seemed to have a plan to shut them down. He would talk poorly about Soil Friends to other community members in person and comments on social media, as well as in meetings. It was very unprofessional. Bub has been unprofessional throughout the last several years. One example, he serviced the township vehicles at his personal auto garage while sitting as treasurer on the township board. As treasurer, he was writing himself checks as he did bill the township for the vehicle services. This was a huge conflict of interest that should have never been allowed. It took me bringing it to their attention multiple times during his tenure until finally switching to another local garage. That is a form of corruption. Not too long ago, while explaining how his involvement in the Strong property was not a conflict of interest, he mentioned how he fought with another Comstock individual, Mr. Hatfield. He explained that he protected the Strong property from people like Mr. Hatfield. The more he talked, the bigger the conflict of interest with his involvement became. The township attorney seemed to notice this and had direct and strong words with the planning commission at the subsequent meeting. This pattern shows he is not trustworthy and does not have the township as his priority. It isn't hard to believe that what he continues to say about Soil Friends is fabricated and not based in reality. He should be removed from the planning commission, or in the very least, unable to participate in Soil Friends business matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ampey. I was a little perturbed when I looked at the agenda for your last month's meeting, and I didn't see anything on there about Soil Friends coming up. And then I find out it was because there was an email submitted asking to be on the agenda. But those of us who look at the agenda and determine whether to, come and speak, or if there was any issues or not, wouldn't have known that. So I, being one of the planning commissioners that was on the commission when Soil Friends first came in and asked for a conditional, thing, was just, I don't understand how it wasn't just waited to come to this meeting instead of coming to the, instead of that one. It seemed rushed. And there was one commissioner at the time I noticed the same thing and asked, why can't it just wait until today? Now, those conditions that were put on with legal here. And one of them that I'm real concerned with is the entrance that they're asking for off of East Main. That is a pretty steep area out there, and that was why that one condition was there. You guys just went over housing development on H Avenue and 28th Street, and when that got to the township board, that was denied, and one of the reasons for it being denied was the traffic. Now, when we made those conditions, they were made with a lot of letters from concerned neighbors. There was the music, there was the time of opening and shutting, and concerns with traffic and trash and trespassing, and so all of those. And also there was an engineer that drew up some plans and actually found out later that that plan was altered. So he sent a letter also. There shouldn't be any reason at all, really, why you have to guess or ask if somebody else was there and can remember. We've got the video, and all you got to do is look back at that, and you'll know why some of that stuff was done. So I would just like you consider me.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna say aye, that's all. Hi, gang. Bless y'all. In general, most people just changes takes time to work around, adjust to, and deal with. If there are personal vendettas against anything on either side of what would be considered a small conflict of interest or what have you, in general, it's change that irritates everybody. It does. So in that mind, just for anybody that doesn't like it, consider yourself thoughts. Is it the change you don't like, first of all? And second of all, is it detrimental to you or the community as a whole? And including when people vote on things that are astronomically, unproportionately affordability, we still, if it's good for the community, you should consider it. I don't want to pay more for anything, but if it works in the long run, that's some of the things you as a board and other people probably recognize. But if it goes beyond just rational thinking and it's the plain old change, you're caught. You're losing your rational thinking. And the changes, we have our 100-year flood. It came back again. Those were things that the Planning Commission somebody thought it was a good idea to mow down the ballpark. Can't do nothing about it. But some people can stand up and say they were wrong because it's still ponding. So those are God's hands, and some people's opinions, it's out of our hands. So when everything goes in different directions, it's not always it's their fault. It's nobody's fault. Shake it up, roll the dice, make shit happen. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's pretty simple. You got no choice anywhere in this world. Unfortunately, you guys have a lot of decisions in your hands. And that becomes stressful to a T, but don't block it by other people thinking. And again, you don't like change. Just imagine if everybody turned the chairs around. It'd be difficult for some people to figure out what that is. The average citizen. But I guess, I don't know, hopefully I touched some sort of deep psyche in your minds. Some of you. So beyond all that, go forward in positive thinking. Change is usually for the benefit of change.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna mosey. You always wait for the last.
Yeah, might as well.
That's right. I'm not paying attention.
I can understand why one of the commenters had an issue with it. He was named in the lawsuit with Soil Friends. But it's time we just quit messing with this business. There's no reason why we can't let a very friendly, family-friendly, fun farm that's doing nothing wrong but succeeding. And some people just hate success for others.
Thank you.
I think that a lot of part of the issue that we have, or it appears that we have, is that when there are issues with businesses, people take it personally. And I don't think that it needs to be that way. If you disagree with somebody about how they operate their business, that's okay, and let's help them because they benefit the community. If they were out scamming people, yes, we'll be upset because they're scamming people. But if it's a nice young family, or even if it's not a young family, if it's an old family, if they're making an attempt to do business correctly, instead of getting angry about it, which to me is illogical. Why would we get angry about somebody wanting to do business? Yes, they might not always do it correctly, but if anybody who's ever run a business before knows that you're not always going to make all the right decisions all the right time, because you might not know what you're doing all the time. And that's okay. It's okay for us to fail. I don't understand how we got away from accepting that it's okay for failures in life and that it's okay for us to lend a hand and lift somebody up, you know? That's one of the things that we did growing up, is that what were some of the things that you failed at today? So that in my family, we would help each other through those things. And I feel like that, as a planning commission and the township board, we should be doing those things. How do we help people be successful in the community? Yes, we're allowed to have opinions and post things online, and that's great and wonderful. But at the end of the day, the reason why you want to be on the board is, I assume, that you want to benefit the community in some regards, that you have knowledge or that you have experience that you think people could benefit from. So if you have an abundance of experience running businesses or, education, I would strongly recommend and suggest that we utilize those talents to help people, as opposed to getting upset at people because they're not doing the things that we want them to do. And I don't think that having this constant hostile, well, you didn't file this thing correctly, or you didn't do this thing correctly, instead of getting upset about it, why don't we say, hey, this is something that could be looked at. Can we help you do it? How can we help you be successful? Because to me, that's what the Planning Commission is to help people be successful. What does the Township Board do? To help people be successful so that we can continue to grow the community. And so I think this is constant hostile thing of going back and forth. Like, is this what it's going to be for everybody who starts a new business and sometimes makes a mistake or forgets to make a tax payment? You know, is like, we're just going to be hostile and harass them, until they leave or until they conform to what we want them to do? I would just recommend instead we just try to help them because they benefit all of us collectively. That's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to comment on about us being on the Planning Commission, not on the agenda last week, but being brought up. I felt like it was a pretty important situation when a Planning Commission member is talking about your business and it is not true, and spreading bad things about it. I feel like it needed to be brought up pretty quickly. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. All right. If there are no further citizen comments, we will move on to new business, which is the landscape revisions and public hearing.
If I can take it away for you, Madam Chair, real quick.
Please do. Thanks, Casey.
So for the past few meetings, we have worked on revising our landscaping standards in our zoning ordinance. The revisions in the packet are highlighted as red and show the strikeout versions of what the ordinance currently says. Not many changes were done to the overall ordinance. I think the biggest change was to add flexibility for the Planning Commission to waive requirements if they think that it will be better suited for public safety, welfare, and the ordinance as a whole. So the numbers of the canopy trees and bushes and shrubs all stay the same, just again adding flexibility to ensure that safety is a priority.
You have to move to open the public hearing.
Yep.
I move we open the public hearing on the landscape revisions.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Treasurer Bloomfield. All in favor of opening the public hearing on landscape revisions, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries, and public hearing is now open. We'll hear anything from the public on the landscaping revisions. If we have no commentary from the public, we'd be looking for a motion to close public hearing.
I make a motion to close public hearing on the landscape revision.
Support.
Motion made by Secretary Chrysler, supported by Commissioner Nichols to close public hearing on landscape revisions. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. We'll open it up for commissioner discussion on landscaping revisions.
I have a question for Commissioner Nichols and for Casey. When we have ZBA changes, I was told that some of them are coming in as landscaping changes for variances. I guess I would like to have some discussion about what kind of changes people are coming to the board for variances, so we know that before we move forward with this ordinance.
So the only one we had in the past like 2 years was Aetna on East ML. They came in because they could not meet the canopy trees or the tree requirements because they had underground and overhead utilities. And they couldn't place them anywhere else because there was a retention pond in the back. So I believe that with the revisions we have, the Planning Commission could now make those decisions. So that was the only one we had the past 2 years, unless you know of any.
Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A came in only for the green space. Was it the green space, 20 feet?
Yeah.
They couldn't meet that 20-foot buffer. So they had.
Because of the driveway?
Joseph was there too.
Yeah, you were. I don't remember exactly what it was, because I remember Commissioner Weintraub asked them, why can't they just move everything back a little bit? And they said that doesn't work for their design plan. So they could have met it by just adjusting their site plan a little bit.
They would have lost parking was what their concern was, and their parking is full, or their parking lot's full half the time.
Yeah. So we haven't changed the green space buffer. It's still that 20 feet for what the zoning district they fell in. But for Aetna, I believe that moving forward, during their site plan review, you all can now, if they need that waiver, you all can offer that based on the changes we've made.
We had one with the Sherwin-Williams too, because of the green space and the position of the building.
Sorry, I was wrong. We had more than one.
Yeah, that is.
We just interviewed a gal and she was bringing these up.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm like, you know what, we need to discuss this because this was good information coming out of that interview today about, that we need to know these things as a planning commission if we have people coming to the ZBA for the same things. So since we're working on the ordinance, we might as well make sure we're doing what they're coming to have changed.
Yeah, if I may, Treasurer Bloomfield.
Sure, go ahead.
One of the standards for variance, the last one is if this is a recurrent enough request, we should amend our ordinance. And so the green space one could have been, but how many site plans have we seen that met the green space requirement? So we didn't think to bring that to you all when there's so many site plans in the past 2 years that have met the standard. So it's not recurrent enough in nature. Maybe if this keeps happening with different items, me and Larry can make sure we.
Green space is hard because it changes according to the property that they're dealing with.
Correct.
Like they have to have their building a certain way because that's the way they build every one. And if they changed their building, they probably would have been fine.
And I, in that case, I would leave that up to the hardship situation. I mean, before across the board reducing the green space requirement, I would want to customize it to the situations where it's actually a hardship.
Yep.
The only other thing that was brought to my attention was snow. If people had enough, I know snow, if people had enough room to put their snow when we have heavy snowfalls. And I said, okay, I'll just mention it. So.
That's always an issue in a small business.
I know, yes.
Yeah, I'm for you. I'm with you. Get that passed.
Well, the other one was.
All right,
Sounds like we'd like to just put an ordinance against snow, huh?
yeah, we'd like to.
We're done. Mother Nature, we're done.
It's spring, we're done.
And the other one was when Rooster Call was going to come up on Gull Road, and all the medians they had to have in that parking lot was just, I mean, it didn't make any sense to have those kind of medians, that kind of money, and then be told they had to put sprinkler systems in those little medians that were in the back. So, I mean, we talked about the medians and some of the parking lots and to shrink them up and whatnot. So.
Well, we did. Yeah, that's part of this revision. So.
All right. Any additional items you think we need to address, or?
I have one question,
Sure.
just for your thoughts. This is on page 18 of our packet, the last, in number 2 there, where it says, this is where we can reduce it. The reviewing body may require, and it was such alternate plantings, we change it to require lesser alternate plantings. Should it just say, may require lesser plantings rather than lesser alternate plantings? Do you think, I think probably just take that alternate word out, and
Yes, I think.
that gets more at the meaning of what we're trying to do.
Lesser plantings
Yeah.
or visual screens such
Yeah.
as hedges, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Would agree. All right, correct me if I'm wrong, but we allow this to ride, or we would have to override our bylaws for this to address tonight.
No, it's a text
We're
amendment.
good, because it's text amendment.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so, yeah, so what you'd be looking for is a recommendation, one way or the other.
And I would move that we recommend the adoption of the revisions to the landscaping ordinance.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Commissioner Sherwood, to recommend adoption of the landscaping revisions. Let's go.
That would just, for clarification purposes, without the word alternate, correct?
Correct, with the revision of that one, removal of that one word, yes.
Thanks.
Perfect. Casey, can we do a roll call on this one?
Yes. Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer?
Yes.
Chair Lawrence?
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherwood?
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes.
Motion passes 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. That was one of our items on our list at the beginning of the year, so nicely done. All right, up next is old business and the Soil Friends continued discussion on their conditions. And I guess I want to first ask Attorney Thal, we had talked last about if we wanted to make adjustments to these, would it require, in all of the meeting minutes, it states in writing with mutual agreement of both parties, does it require a public hearing as well, or no? That's what you were going to circle back for us.
Correct. So I researched that issue, and under the law, it does allow for mutual consent of the approving authority and the landowner to change conditions. So whatever this board may determine, we can reduce that to writing and then have it signed off on by chairman and the landowner, and that would be appropriate. Does not require any further public hearings.
Okay. I just felt that was important to figure out kind of where we go from here tonight, at least.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
introduce the
Please
item.
do.
So we received an email from Soil Friends requesting we review conditions placed back in 2023, and they are requesting removal of a few conditions that were placed by the previous Planning Commission. So in your packet, you have the minutes from April 13, 2023, and April 27, 2023, with the second being when they received their full approval. You also have a formal complaint that they submitted against Commissioner Sherwood. And is there anything else in this? 1 second, let me get to where we are. Perfect, formal complaint. And then as an accessory item, I did receive an email from a Star Truisms, I don't know if that's the correct name or not, requesting information on if there's a conflict of interest due to investment. Not sure if that means attending or if that means like an angel investor in their business. Not quite sure how you all have the email in front of you, so if you want to discuss it or not.
Attorney Thal, I defer to you.
Yeah, I can address that. So we have built into our bylaws already provisions for conflict of interest, where board members are expected and required to announce any conflict of interest, which could be as a family member, having a financial interest involved, the planning commission member owns or has a financial interest in even the neighboring property within the notice distance, and also a reasonable appearance of impropriety or interest. We already have built into our bylaws provisions to address conflict of interest. And so if any board member did have a conflict of interest, they were required to announce it. Otherwise, that would be malfeasance and they could be removed from the board. So that's already taken into consideration in our bylaws. And it's a requirement of the commissioners to police themselves and announce any kind of conflicts and recuse themselves. With regard to Commissioner Sherwood, we've already addressed that, and he's recusing himself from Soil Friends matters.
Can I question that?
Sure.
One, I never asked to recuse myself. I was told to. Two, I never got to defend myself. Three, I'm not out to get Soil Friends. I tried to help Ben when he first came out. Do not want their business to shut down. I want their business to thrive. All as I wanted was everything to be done the correct way by ordinances and zoning. And I see some of that stuff. And then I get the accusations against me that I'm doing this. I was scamming money off the township. I had a ex parte communication on a property with a guy running a gun in my face, that there was no site plan use or special use application, so I was not in ex parte communication. I am not against Soil Friends. I'm not against any business in Comstock. I just want the businesses to be run the proper way and to follow all the laws that every one of us business people in this community have had to run in the past. So I don't think I should have to recuse myself. I don't believe it's true. I don't believe half of the statements that come out of the audience against me. So I'm not going to ask to recuse myself. If the board wants to recuse me, so be it.
Well, I would just say that I believe that, from the things that have been put out there, sure not, indicate, that, and we've talked about this in the past, when things are coming up in front of us, when things are before us, we cannot indicate preference one way or the other publicly, because the only place we can do that is in this meeting, is in the public meeting. Otherwise, any decision that's made can be subject to challenge, because it can be challenged by one party or the other based upon a predisposed opinion one way or another that you express. And so we have to be really careful of that as commissioners. We have a proposed bylaw amendment that addresses that later also. But my legal opinion would be that you should recuse yourself from Soil Friends Matters. I think you've done that in the past. I understand what you're saying, but I would still say, to protect the decision-making process of the Planning Commission, that you would recuse yourself so that the decision can be without question.
Can I ask one more question? Then I'll recuse.
Sure.
We need a specific definition of a small winery with tasting, and a specific definition of event center, because that's where I was seeing the conflict in the two. We did an event center, we did a small winery, and it's for anybody that comes into the community. What are they allowed to do under the ordinances for these two separate things? Now, we were working on an agritourism ordinance at one time, and we never finished it, which I think we should have, because this would have answered a lot of the questions and everything that's going down here. And so I think those two things need to be separated as to what they are, so the board knows exactly and the people know exactly what we're working with here. And that's just my opinion.
I would just say a couple things in that regard. So we do have in that zoning district, it does allow for wineries and I think on-premise tasting rooms.
Yes.
As a special land use. So, when there's questions about when something falls into one category and another category, those normally go to the zoning administrator first to make a decision on how that should go. Not to say that this board couldn't work on the agritourism regulations that might further define it, but I think that there is a difference between an event center and a winery with an on-premise tasting room under our ordinance.
If I may, Attorney Thaw, I guess I maybe should have emailed this to you. So when this email came in, I also had a resident stop by, I think because probably Soil Friends was on the agenda, and voiced concerns that there are events being held there. So I don't know if that's what Commissioner Sherwood was getting to, that there are events being held there. So I don't know if we want to also discuss that. Of course, a resident stopped in with no proof and said this. I'm not quite sure if it's something we should look into, but they did say that they were hosting bridal showers there, and I don't know what to do with that information.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with that type of issue, and that's, I'm very familiar with the Peninsula, Old Mission Peninsula winery case, and in that case, there's huge damages associated to the township, associated with their regulation of events specifically. They weren't liable for damages on other things that they violated, but specifically with their control of events at those locations because they did not have them properly defined in their ordinance. And so the ambiguity created the parties didn't know, and then the court said, okay, that was unconstitutional vagueness, and has, at least the district court has ruled that. Now it's before the Sixth Circuit on appeal, but we know that that's an area that you really want to be careful of not stepping into unless we go into a lot more detail and further try to define it. But I wouldn't do anything with it until I see what happens out of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals case, because they're up over $50 million in damages in that case from multiple wineries and the damages all stem from regulation of that they weren't allowed maybe to have a bridal shower or other things in their tasting rooms and on premise. And so that lack of definition in their ordinances can create problems. So I would not go into that aspect of regulation of the winery or its on-premise tasting room unless we, number one, first see what comes out of the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and then number two, maybe provide further definition of, very defined terms in the ordinance so people know what they can and cannot do, because otherwise there's tremendous liability.
Joseph?
Before we go down that rabbit hole, I would like to respond to you, Bob.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think the unfortunate situation you find yourself in, or we find ourselves in, you brought on yourself. No one would have challenged you as far as participating in discussions or voting if you hadn't, published inflammatory and biased stuff publicly. And given that you have, if you're not willing to recuse yourself or excuse yourself, I would support a motion to have you excluded from voting in this case. And again, the reason is specifically your public position on something that is before us officially.
I guess the question is to you on where do you stand and what do you want to do, Bob?
I will recuse, and I'll ask the board if I can recuse myself. But I would just.
Microphone, please.
Pardon?
Mike.
I'll ask the board if I can recuse myself. I was just looking for clarifications, and I do want to say one more thing before I do. What they published with all the stuff I wrote, that was in response to a question that they didn't publish, was why we needed the one law that we had, why we had the ordinance with the...
I what, how are you talking about our business when we've already, is this,
We got it.
okay.
We got it.
Okay, I'll ask to recuse myself because this will go nowhere.
I think probably that's what's best to move us forward. So we would take a vote on that, correct?
Correct, make a motion, and then,
I move we accept Bub's excusing himself from discussion and voting on Soil Friends issues.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Commissioner Nichols to accept Bub's request to recuse himself. Let's just roll call it.
All right, Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak,
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub,
Yes.
Chair Lawrence,
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer,
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield.
Yes.
Motion passes, 6 yeas, 0 nays, and Mr. Sherwood recusing himself, or abstaining from this vote.
Got it. Okay. I did want to bring up, so moving forward into the content of Soil Friends, and it is pertaining to something that was just mentioned, but I'll say it anyway. The description of the small winemaker license, the definition, as according to Michigan, the MLCC, is a manufacturer of wine which manufactures 50,000 or fewer gallons of wine a year, can sell wine to wholesaler licensees to sell to retailers, may also sell wine to consumers under an on-premise tasting room permit at the location where it manufactures it, and also through an off-premise tasting room license or joint off-premise tasting room license, may self-distribute wine it manufactures to retailers, may hold a farmer's market permit that allows the sale and sampling of its wine at farmer's market, no local legislative approval required for licensure. So first and foremost, there's that is not required through the state to obtain a small winemaker's license, if manufacturing only. On-premise tasting room permit requires local legislative approval, which falls into our ordinance and our special use permit. And then when you get to the definition, I thought I had, yes. Beer and wine tasting permit allows for beer and wine tastings on the premises of a specially designated merchant licensee. An SDM may hold this permit in order to conduct beer or wine tastings on its premise. A brewer, microbrewer, winemaker, small winemaker, out-of-state seller of beer, or an out-of-state seller of wine may also hold this permit in order for one of its salesperson licensees to conduct beer or wine tasting on the premise of an SDM licensee. No local legislative approval required for approval. So just since we were talking about definitions, I brought those because of one of the requests of the conditions in here, having to do with, if I go back to Sarah's, I've got papers everywhere here. If I go back to the letter from Soil Friends,
In the minutes from last.
I have it also here.
They listed
Right.
all of her demands, and it's on page 6 of our packet. There's the 5 things that she asked. Can you read it?
right, so it had to do with the increase in production or what they were doing. I just thought it was relevant to know what the permit specifically entitled based on what was there. And if we go back to the original uses, there is any change in license type requires planning commission approval. However, the MLCC is stating that there's no legislative approval needed for the licensure.
Yeah, if I can address.
Sure.
So if I can just go through their 5 items here, and then obviously
Perfect.
they get to present what they're thinking in regards to those items. With regard to the first item, which is the 3-year, the annual reviews, that's entirely up to the discretion of this body, okay? The second one is regarding they request the removal of any change in license type requires planning commission approval. That one I don't think that we can do at all, so that one should not be part of any condition. we do not engage, the planning commission does not engage in approval of licenses. So that one should, as our chair spoke about, should be removed. The third one, requesting an increase in production beyond small maker license. It's not so much the licensing that is a question, it is the intensity of use. So we can still regulate by locational controls and special land use what goes on properties within the municipality, including where where you can sell alcohol and have retail, and where you can have industrial or whatever it might be, manufacturing, whatever it might be. The Liquor License Commission rules do not say that we can't zone like locational controls or the things that we do with special land use regarding the impact. You know, basically they're all locational controls. How we regulate it through special land use is a locational control. If they want to increase, so right now they're at 50,000 barrels or up to 50,000 barrels. If they wanted to increase that, that's something, it's not so much the different license that we concern ourselves with. It's how does it impact the neighboring properties? Does that, if they go from that to something where they can produce massive more amounts. Now, they'd still have to come back for any kind of site plan for buildings and other things where they're manufacturing, stuff like that, production. But at the same time, and it's entirely up to you. That's a provision that you can, within your discretion, as to whether you want to release that, how you might want to release that, if you do or if you don't. That's a discretionary one. I just wanted to make the point, it's different than number 2, which is your control of the license. Number 3 is actually an impact issue of how many trucks a day are going to be coming in and out of there, things of that sort, that you can regulate through special land use. So when you get special land use approval for a project, it is that project. If you want to increase that project, then you're doing something different than what was proposed, and you'd have to get further amendment to your special land use typically. So that's with regard to that one. In terms of the East Main Road access, that's entirely, again, a decision up to this board. It's you can regulate their access or non-access, but that is up to this board. With regard to hours, the winery case clearly said that hours are also up to this board. The state sets certain hours, but in that case, the township had like a 9:30 ending time, and the court upheld that upheld the township's regulations in that regard. So again, that's a decision that's up to this board. So most of these things are going to be decisions that are up to you in terms of how you want to deal with the conditions. And, to that extent, we'd have to reach a written agreement with the landowner on those. With regard to item 2, I think that one should just be automatically removed, or the board should take action for sure to remove that condition.
Very good, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Well, I would just suggest we take these one at a time.
Okay.
Treat each one and discuss and decide how we want to respond.
Should we hear from Soil Friends first on kind of what they're looking to achieve here?
Well,
I think that would
maybe
probably
one
be
at a time.
appropriate.
If she would like to talk.
Sarah, do you
about
just want to come to the podium?
Yeah, of course. Where do we want to, want to just go down the list? We can start with the hours.
Yeah.
I think that our main concern is just being constricted in a box, because I would love to maybe someday do breakfast, Wyatt has eggs, bacon, farm stuff. And then I grow flowers. We might want to do like flowers and mimosas. So my idea was maybe just go with the noise ordinance, which I believe is 7 to 10, just so that we can, I have 5 kids. I'm not trying to get crazy, just so that we can just have those parameters and decide where we want to go. That was all on the hours.
Thoughts from the board or conversation on the hours?
I myself, I have no problem them being open from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think it's very good. I would like to see breakfast, and I know that people usually go home with families around 9:15, 9:30. I know you're trying to get everybody out by 10, but it's gonna be 10:15, 10:20. But
I go to
anyway,
bed at like
I'm in
9.
favor of 7 to 10 p.m.
Okay. Sounds good.
I would support that.
I would support that as well.
I would too.
I think that I would support following the noise ordinance, because I think that keeps us consistent with one specific policy.
I'm good with that. Would the attorney like a motion on each one of these?
Sure, let's take them as we go. Yes.
All right, then we'll be looking for a motion on the hours.
I would make a motion for Soil Friends hours to be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Support.
Motion made by Secretary Kreitzer, supported by Commissioner Nichols, to expand the hours available to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Is that accurate, Jimmy?
Sunday.
Monday through Sunday?
Yep.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call vote?
Treasurer Bloomfield,
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer,
Yes.
Chair Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays, with Commissioner Sherwood abstaining.
Okay. We've already addressed music, right? That happened previously, so those are both handled. So next up would be the access, the East Main Street access.
Yeah, and as of right now, we don't actually have plans of using it. I think it's just, again, getting the squeezing on us and having rules that we just want the opportunity to be able to go to the road commission and apply for a permit and see if it's safe, and then, of course, decide from there.
Discussion?
I also wanted to say that we only had, with the easement, we only had one person complain across the street, which he wasn't a huge fan of us. And then we have 2 houses that share the property, and they have never had any issues with us, never complained or anything. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you. Thank you. Joseph?
This is the one in the list that I have the most problem with. I think it was 2 years ago, it was the April 13th in 2023. The minutes reflect that Sarah Martin said they would never use the East Main Street access, and it goes behind all the homes, including their own. And I would only feel comfortable removing that restriction at this time if we did hold a public hearing. This one I would feel needs to be published and actually get a response. I know we heard from someone that was there that night and said only one person spoke against it, and it was the guy across the street or something like that.
Yeah.
So there was clearly not significant opposition. But I think that was, I'm not, that's just how I feel. I'm not comfortable with that. Maybe other commissioners feel differently, but that one I'm the least enthusiastic about changing.
I do have to say too, with the safety, where that part of our property is, there is a hill down here, but there's still another driveway. So there's a good amount of space to make sure that we don't, cause any issues with the hill too. I know that was another issue.
It's just the proximity to those other houses that disturbs me.
Yeah.
I have a question. Maybe for Larry, you were on the board before, but I guess my question is, if somebody wanted to put in a driveway on their property and they meet all of the setback standards and the road commission says, yes, good to go, what's the difference in that versus this situation? Like, would we have any specific, they would come to us for a site plan on a driveway and we would say yes or no, and it would have to be approved by the road commission. Am I correct on that?
Generally, we would do whatever the road commission was happy with or okay with.
Okay. I guess that's kind of where I see that is I would honestly defer to the road commission. Like, I don't know that if the road commission says yes, okay. If the road commission says it's unsafe, it's unsafe. That's kind of where I would see their job in doing that. I understand the concern of neighbors. I was a little disappointed transparently in the minutes because there was nothing recorded from the public hearing. So there was no commentary in that April 13th from the public whatsoever that was recorded in the minutes. And it stated that there was, it says in line 34, page 6, Jones Newton read an email from a neighbor and noted 4 letters received at the beginning of the meeting. One individual addressed the planning commission, but we don't know if that's in favor or opposed. So yes, there's video, but the minutes are.
Back then, we didn't include the public comment in our minutes. We did that under our board.
Okay. So I guess that's where I kind of lean towards defer to the road commission.
I would agree with Amber. I think the road commission would determine whether it's safe or not. I think the main entrance they're at right now has its safety concerns. I think both areas probably have safety concerns, but the alternate entrance proposal, if they wanted to do it, might be the lesser of the 2 danger points. But I would refer to the road commission.
I believe that this is the road commission's department, not this body of the Township Planning Commission as well.
I was going to say, you were on the board. What do you think?
No, I was not.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I came in from
That's right.
before. So my feeling is that I'd like to see Soil Front have a backup plan or another way out or whatever, but I feel it should be up to the road commission to make that decision. But they should have a backup plan or a safety plan in case something happened to the main entrance.
Yeah, it could be necessary to get out of there in a hurry. And that would be an alternative.
So if we were to defer that to the road commission, Attorney Thal, would that be where you would just strike that out of here as a condition where it says no access to East Main? Or would you just put something in there of, access to East Main based on road commission approval? What would that look like?
Yeah, no matter what, they have to get road commission approval. So, I mean, if you struck that, then they still have to get road commission approval to use that access. The only thing that I would say is, if you say, do you care if they want the other access and just use the East Main? Because if you're saying they could use it, say the road commission approves the secondary access, do you care that they have 2 accesses, or could they shut one? I don't know if it matters to you. I'm just throwing that out for you.
Based on the safety conversation, I think there'd be a benefit to 2, but.
I agree.
That's what I just picked up from your conversation, that you may want to, the condition instead could be that, that they can access off of East Main also, but they must still maintain the access off of the other street.
33rd Street.
And then, Attorney Thal, just to clarify, even if we strike that condition, a site plan would still be needed if they did choose to make that driveway?
Yes, they would still need to come in with a site plan showing that.
But that's a normal thing with the road commission, right?
No, they'd have to apply for a site plan through us.
Because they have a site plan right now that obviously
They would need
doesn't
to amend
show
it.
a road there. So they would have to show that. With the special land use approvals, you have to also have a site plan
Okay.
that corresponds to it. So they would have to come back in. So just understanding that if you take that condition out and they want to open up the East Main Road, then it's a site plan review amendment to show that road in there. So they'd still have to come here and get site plan approval for that road, but they wouldn't have to go back and change any special land use conditions.
Sarah, what is that?
All that we just wanted to be able to go to the road commission and ask for a permit and see, and then of course come here and do a site plan review.
Since these have to be mutually agreed upon, I just feel like it's important to check in with where you're at on what we're discussing.
Yep.
If you want to continue discussing that, we certainly can. If we feel like we know where people stand, somebody can make a motion one way or the other on the access.
I'll make a motion that Soil Friends will have to go to the Kalamazoo Road Commission to get approval on this, but they would have to come with us to.
We would just strike that.
Yeah, I'll just help you a little bit. So I think all that you would have to do for a motion is to basically strike the no access to East Main Street. So you would allow access to East Main Street, so you just strike that as a condition. And if they have to understand, and maybe in our written agreement, it'll be a little more laid out, but they would have to understand that they have to go to the road commission. And then if the road commission were to approve that, they'd come in with a site plan showing the new road. So I think it's just a matter of striking the condition.
Okay, I'll say strike the condition of the East Main access there.
Support.
Motion made by Secretary Kreitzer, supported by Commissioner Nowak to strike the no access to East Main condition. Let's roll call vote it, Casey.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub?
No.
Chair Lawrence?
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer?
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes.
Motion passes 5 yeas, 1 nays, and 1 abstaining.
The next item here is all required federal, state, county, and local licensing approvals.
Was that one of the conditions?
It's not one that she asked to remove. I'm just going down all of the conditions on the list. They're up there. That's gonna, Sarah, that's irrelevant, right? Like you have to
Isn't that
have
just a
those.
given?
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah, I would just go to the next one.
We'll just move past that one. Annual review of the special exemption use for 3 years, which schedule of review may be amended. So Sarah, what are you looking to do there?
I think we would like to just get rid of it. I don't think that that's a common practice.
Joseph?
Your initial approval was 2 years ago. So is this the second one that you're due, or have you ever had one?
So we just opened in September. So like we talked about last time, I know we talked about.
So the expectation, it was be 3 years from now, or from?
It was,
I don't remember.
it's every year,
Yeah,
and
it's
this is where
yearly
we
for 3 years.
debated last meeting of like, is it from approval of site plan? Is it from opening? The language is vague, but this was approved in 2023.
And there's only two businesses, and the one hasn't even opened yet. So it seems, is it necessary?
This seems like a bias requirement.
Yeah.
Seems
mean,
like government over.
Do we do this with other businesses?
Only two. There's only two. in
The
this community.
event barn is the other one that has it, apparently.
Okay.
But no review has been completed because they haven't opened yet.
Yeah.
I mean, if we agree that it's unnecessary, we can remove it or reduce it to 1 year or something. Well, I guess it's up to us.
I think we're at 1 year, aren't we?
I think this, in my opinion, this shouldn't be the review and we should move past it.
Okay, I will move that we remove the requirement for any future annual reviews.
Support.
Yeah.
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Treasurer Bloomfield to remove any future reviews of the special exemption use. Roll call vote?
Yep. Secretary Kreitzer,
Yes.
Chair Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstaining.
All right. The lighting also feels pretty standard as we're moving through those, and it wasn't one of the ones you had a concern with, so we'll pass that. Attorney Thal states that he would recommend we remove any change in license type requiring planning commission approval because we don't have authority for that.
So you should make a motion to do it that
Okay.
anyway, as long as we're doing this.
I'll make a motion that we remove any change in type of license requirement be approved by the planning commission.
Support.
Motion made by Commissioner Nichols, supported by Secretary Kreitzer to remove any change in license type requiring planning commission approval. Roll call, Casey.
Commissioner Nowak,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield,
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer,
Yes.
Chair Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays, with 1 abstaining.
All right, and so the last one on here, any increase in production beyond a small winemaker license requires planning commission approval, and that wasn't anything on your list either, so.
Oh, no, it was on here. She's asking to remove that.
Yeah.
That one is something that could impact the local community.
Oh, it is.
I don't know if it's something we want to deal with or what, but that could impact the local people if they go to like a Bell's.
But isn't it limited by their type of license? It's a small license. So, I mean, their volume of production is limited
By the state.
by the license itself.
Yeah.
And we've already said that, you know, we can't control their changing license. So
No,
I'm
we
not
can't.
sure.
So, okay, you're right.
I don't know
Well, I
that.
don't know if I'm right, but
I would just say this, like, there's certain impacts, and again, these are policy decisions for you to make, you know, but there's impacts that are created by the size of the facility there. Regardless, it's not that you're regulating the license. You can choose to regulate the impact into the zoning as a special land use. And so they could get a license as just a winemaker or whatever it might be that could allow vast more amounts. Now, reasonably speaking, they would probably need to expand their buildings and things of that sort, which they'd have to come back here to do that. So you do have that type of control that may ease your mind.
But now you'd have an industrial operation.
Well, that was my thought, though, is there's no way they can do an industrial operation with what they have now. So if they were to put additional buildings in to go to that, we'd be coming
come
back
back
to a site plan, and then we would be able to
And
address.
that would control it.
Yeah, there's
Right.
other ways to regulate it.
Right.
But the attorney don't have to go through the liquor commission to get this change?
Well, if they wanted to, have like and our ordinance allows just winemaker license, so it could be small or large in the zoning district as a special land use. Yeah, they would have to go to the state to change their license. They don't come to us, we struck that out of there. They'd go to the state, but then if they were to do that, I would believe they would need larger facilities if they wanted to expand their production at that site. And by doing that, they'd have to come back in for special land use approval and to amend their special land use and to amend their site plan.
Can I squirrel down a rabbit hole for a minute and ask a question? Squirrel down a rabbit hole, rabbit down a squirrel hole, I don't know. Okay, so hypothetically, because I have all of these permits here, like a small distiller. I've seen some distilleries in some fairly small buildings. They've gotten some pretty cool technology with how you can distill. There's a thing called iDistill, check it out. Anyway, if they could do that within their facility, is there anything that would stop, like, and they went and got said license, is that then prohibited? I guess that's, and this is just me asking a question to understand.
Yeah, no, these are difficult. These
Yeah.
are not simple issues. So when I read through the minutes and I saw, like, they talked about maybe a truck coming, say, once a month, truck traffic in and out, and it could be more than that, but
Sure.
obviously if they expand their business, it could have more trucks. It could have trucks every day coming in and out. Does that change how you would look at the special land use? Would you put different requirements on it? If they came here and we had a public hearing and they said, we're going to have truck traffic every day in and out of the facility because we're expanding our production there, does that, would the public and the neighbors still?
Right, I'm saying like in their current setup as it is today, if they changed their license, we don't have a say over that, right?
Correct.
I have a question, now that we're going down this rabbit hole. If the use, or the special land use is for, what is it, wine tasting room?
Yeah, wine.
Is it just wine? Or like, could they, if they went to distilleries, or if they went to beer?
Right.
Would we, sorry, this might be a lot on the spot, attorney thought.
I would think that, so you do still have locational control of where you allow certain uses. So you've said that you allow not small winemaker, but winemaker license and on-premise tasting room as a special land use. If they want to do something else, we'd have to determine whether it falls within the zoning locational requirements. And the permits don't just say you can locate anywhere. You still have to comply with zoning. They ask, there's typically a requirement that they have to be in compliance with local zoning. So,
Okay.
I don't know if I can say
So
more.
kind of with what you're going with, Amber, there is, under the MCL 436.1603, it does talk about distilling, and it says no local legislative approval. Small distiller, no local legislative approval. Winemaker it says that under each one. Microbrewer, mixed spirit drink, no local legislative approval.
Yeah, if I could address that. Yeah, so when it says that, it means that we do not, or the Township Board does not have to issue approvals of those licenses. You get those licenses through the state, but it doesn't release you from zoning.
Right.
From zoning standards, as long as those zoning standards don't conflict with the state laws. So when it says no license needed, that means, that's why we took the one thing out of there,
right.
No license needed. But it still has to comply with our zoning ordinance. So if there were different types of, and I would think it has to be more related to the impact of the use on the property more than anything, all right? Is how you'd probably have to look at it, and whether something falls within a definition or not. Zoning administrator makes that call. It can go to the ZBA for interpretation of what falls within that definition. But the uses are still subject to zoning, whether or not, we don't license it, but.
That's kind of how I saw it too, but I just wanted to ask the question.
Right, because you can't just say, okay, in the middle of this plat, I'm going to put a distillery or something.
Okay, so we still have that last one that we need to solve for, correct?
Yeah, so that's.
Did we do a motion for the hours?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did we get a formal motion for that? Okay.
So I'm looking for either discussion or a motion on the increase in production beyond a small winemaker's license requiring planning commission approval?
The trucking part of it, in thinking about it, it would require a ton of business to really be an issue for the trucking. If they get one every couple months, that's nothing. Just a convenience store gets 5 or 6 semis, a week or more,
They would have, there's no way that they would.
It would take an awful lot.
You'd have to build a much larger facility to have that impact.
To be an impact in the local community, I believe.
I would agree.
Yeah, Greg would know better anyway. He gets lots of semis.
I'm going to make a motion that we remove any increase in production beyond a small winemaker license requiring planning commission approval.
Support.
Motion made by Chair Lawrence, supported by Commissioner Nowak. Roll call vote.
Yes. Commissioner Weintraub?
Yes.
Chair Lawrence?
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer?
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstaining.
Thank you, guys.
Anything else you need?
No, I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to other business. We have our data center presentation by Attorney Thal.
Mobile vendor ordinance.
Oh, I lied. We have the mobile vendor ordinance. Look at me skipping 2 items. Thank you.
To come back in.
Yeah, you should be. This is all you. Let's go.
I have to add, that is the way it is.
So discussion has occurred on this item for the past few meetings. I've been hearing things like we should do special land uses for these projects, or we should allow, seasonal permits. So just to catch us up on what we've been doing, we haven't made a decision yet, but.
Isn't there an ordinance before the state right now on mobile vendors that they're working?
Yeah, so I actually saw that, printed it. There's two bills that have passed the House. House Bills 5450 and 5451, where they are trying to create a more unified regulatory framework for mobile food establishments by prohibiting local fees and taxes on mobile vendors while strengthening safety and transparency through mandatory annual and post-modification fire inspections, public access to inspection records, and standardized compliance and reporting. I actually asked Attorney Thal a little bit about this, and he said that who knows where these things, when they pass, but it sounds like they're trying to. It sounds like maybe we shouldn't over-regulate it.
Well, I wonder if we can even do anything now with this pending, because we could be out of compliance the day they pass it.
So that's always an issue. Legislation, nobody has a crystal ball to tell you whether it'll pass or not.
The article about it.
When something's proposed, it's just proposed. It could pass, it could sit in a committee. I just don't know where it stands, in terms of whether the governor's willing to sign it, whether it's going to pass both the House and Senate.
So then we really should go ahead and do what we're going to do.
You should do what you're going to do, and then because things like short-term rentals, gravel mining, there's been legislation sitting out there for years that come up, and they're going to do something every year, and then nothing happens. So you can't really paralyze yourself, but you may take into consideration that from the looks of it, the way they're looking at, the legislature's looking at it at least, is that, lesser regulation than more regulation.
I believe I'm going to propose a real simple fix to the ordinance we have, and it probably doesn't address everything that we could or should be looking at, but on, let's see, I guess it's packet page 44. It's in the middle of that ordinance, under 2C. Right now it says permits may be valid for up to 7 calendar days. Okay, I think that we should amend that to say short-term permits may be valid for up to 7 days. Seasonal permits are available for 6 months or 4 months or whatever we decide. And then yearly permits are available and someone can set the prices for that. And that kind of solves the immediate problem that we have without digging a big hole here.
Township sets prices on all that stuff.
Right, yeah, so let somebody else, we have a case where someone wants to get an annual permit. And what I would state in here is on the yearly permit, a site plan is required.
You might, and in addressing that, I think if you look at your standards, and maybe you'd want to say it, do you want to allow an administrative site plan review or make them come here? So you could say an administrative site plan review if there's certain conditions, if they meet those conditions.
I would certainly be in favor of an administrative.
It could fall within that. And yeah, they're in your packet here on page 52H. Kind of goes into administrative review.
It's just, you know, a seasonal person might want to be like a regular food truck and move around and follow the ordinance and park where you're supposed to and do all those things that we spend all the time spelling out. If someone wants an annual one, they're going to have a site. And so they should have a site plan.
Do you think you'd want to define seasonal, like, with a certain date, like May 1 to October or whatever, or?
I think you could just say like 120 days. So it gives somebody the short option, middle, because their season, I don't know, maybe they're seasonal for maple syrup. I don't know, you know, like something that is actually seasonal.
Yeah, I had another township working on mobile vendor ordinance, and you know, it's kind of like you got to put stuff in and then you kind of see what works sometimes. You know, realize that you might need to tweak things like we're doing now one way or another. You can make this change and figure out whether, you know, if it doesn't work, if there's issues that arise, you can always tweak it again.
I guess I have a question. So we do have a temporary sale/service permit that's good for 60 days. And so I guess my point, so they're good for firework, like tents, but then they're also, people are able to set up like grill stations with tents. So I don't know what the difference would be if somebody came to me and said, I want to do a temp sales permit, or I want to do a short-term mobile vendor ordinance. Like, is it because it's a truck?
This would be specifically
For the trucks,
with
okay.
a food truck.
A licensed vehicle.
Or,
Okay.
I think also the ordinance protects, you know, there's safety pieces of it being a vehicle that can be driven on public roadways. I guess my question on that is, like, that's really part of what we were trying to protect here was public roadways, right? So.
Yeah, it says, you know, mobile vendor, a licensed and operable motor vehicle or trailer.
They have a license and then.
Well, we were also trying to protect the brick and mortar too.
Right.
The restaurants that pay big taxes and then a mobile food truck pulls up next door and sells for a lot less money.
And then I also feel that 4D, we gotta reword this one. It says storage of equipment. All equipment associated with the operation of a vendor must be removed from the premises at the conclusion of daily operation. So just saying it the way I read it, and if I'm wrong, would say it have to be removed from the property.
yeah, that should be revised to probably say when vacated or something. So when they leave, it could be in 2 days, it could be a day, it could, if they have a different permit, it could be 4 months, or a different permit, it could be annually. But when they vacate the premises, their equipment needs to go also, right?
Could be an event, and in that case, they wouldn't want to move it every night. You know, maybe it's
Right.
a week-long event.
Right.
I would think also it differs on if it's on public or private property, right?
True.
Because if it's public, maybe it does, unless it's an event, it does need to be removed because there's safety pieces involved with that. But if it's on private property where it's not on a roadway or something like that,
I don't
And
think we
it's
control it in
stationary
this,
for-
if I can, I don't believe this controls private in our ordinance, does it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, so we have an E, private property, vendors conducting business on private property for private events that are not open to the general public may operate without the need for a permit.
Right.
But if it's open to the public on private property,
Right.
then they need
then
a
it
permit.
technically falls under all of the other permitting requirements.
Right.
And then the next one is public property, that if it's on public property, the vendors have to receive approval from the Township Board of Trustees to operate on public property. So like the park and things of that sort. But the storage of equipment probably does need to be amended if you're changing the type of permit.
Correct.
You know, all equipment associated with the operation of the vendor must be removed from the premises.
Should we
When
just
vacated.
strike that?
Well,
Or you might want it.
you could strike the word daily, but I'm wondering if that shouldn't be moved under the public property. I mean, if it's on public property or on a street or a right-of-way, then this applies. But again, if it's set up in a park or in a private property, then maybe it's a different, sort of situation.
I'd like to see it say something to the effect, must be stored and secured at the conclusion of daily operations.
That probably fits better than what we have.
It's their responsibility. I mean, they're gonna not want their stuff stolen.
Stored and secured.
So rather than removed from the
Rather than
premises.
removed,
Say
yeah.
stored and secured.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, I do too.
That's a better gig.
So it would be to strike removed from the premise at the conclusion of daily operations and insert stored
Secured.
and secured.
On the premises? Okay.
From the premises. Or
Not
yeah,
from the
right,
premises, yeah.
yep,
Say that one more time. I wanna make sure we got that right.
So it would read, all equipment associated with the operation of a vendor must be stored and secured
At the conclusion.
At the conclusion of daily
the
operations.
at the conclusion of daily operations. But we're not specifying at the premises,
Yeah.
off the premises. It
Yeah.
just has to be stored and secured.
Right. Correct.
That looks good.
Thanks.
Do we want it to say something like, we want it removed at the conclusion of their business, be it a week, a month, or 6 months?
You think about weighing their license there? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, just so that,
Well, if they got a 7-day permit, they gotta move it at the end of 7 days.
Or they'd be in
Okay.
violation.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I think the permit will satisfy it.
Yeah.
Did we
And-
finish? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was just, did we finish seasonal? I didn't think we did. We didn't put a time on there for how many days.
We didn't, do we want 6 months? Do you want 120 days? Do you want, what does that look like?
We talked, what, April 1st to October 31st or something?
So basically 6 months you're talking.
Yeah.
I would rather see months or days rather than specific months that it would fall in.
180 days?
Days.
I agree with Bob. I think 180 because if you have people that are doing summer, they're gonna go into a little bit of fall.
Yeah, they're gonna consider that one an annual, most people are gonna consider that permit an annual permit, you know?
So,
80, you think?
so we want
Yeah.
a short-term permit available for 7 days, a seasonal permit for 180, or an annual permit with administrative site plan approval.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
And the
that, Casey?
seasonal permit is just gonna be the food truck application, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, or the mobile bidder
right.
application.
No site plan for that.
sounds a lot better.
I think that solves pretty much all of it, yeah?
Yeah, so,
Do we need to put it to a vote?
I was gonna say,
We will.
do you want to see these revisions back? All completed, so public, or, yeah, outside public hearing, or schedule public hearing for 15 days from now?
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
a public
See it-
hearing,
yep.
don't we?
Do you want to see it again before public hearing, or do you want me to just schedule it?
No, I think
No.
we can schedule it.
Okay.
Because we'll be close enough that if there's minor tweakage to the words, we can still do that.
So you should, so you need to still make a motion to do that.
Okay. So we need a motion for amendments that were proposed today.
I move that we set a public hearing to review the amendments as we worked on tonight, as far as the classes of permits and the storage of, and securing of materials during, after hours.
Support?
Motion made by Commissioner Weintraub, supported by Secretary Kreitzer and Commissioner Nichols. We'll voice vote this. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. All right, now we're going to actually move on to the bylaw revision from Attorney Thal.
Just briefly, from the discussion at the last meeting, there was a desire to create a bylaw amendment. This is what I've drafted here. A planning commissioner shall not publicly comment positively or negatively on applicant matters outside of the designated planning commission meeting at which such application shall be heard. A violation of this restriction shall be considered malfeasance in office. So pretty straightforward and to the point.
And I mentioned this, but I just think it's worth saying publicly, like we had some sidebar conversation, but this is specific to comments in related to those matters that are before us or whatnot. It's not necessarily like, hey, I'm supporting said business, or I just took my car to Bub's garage and he did a great job.
I retired.
I know you did, but I'm just hypothetical, right? Like,
Yes.
Right, and so this is, you know, it just is an addition to our already existing conflict of interest provision, so it's just one more thing. The other could still create a conflict of interest. You could comment on something, you know, and the person could then later make application, but your comments could be so biased that you would need to refrain from participation in that matter. But this is specifically, if you violate that, it's malfeasance. So.
got it. Comments, thoughts, discussion?
I think it's good, something we need to implement.
I'm ready to move it.
Then we'd be looking for a motion.
I make a motion that we add it to our bylaws.
Support.
Motion made to adopt letter D to our bylaws as presented by Attorney Thal, made by Commissioner Nichols, supported by Secretary Kreitzer. Let's voice vote this. Or, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Yes, gotcha.
You knew what I meant.
Chair Lawrence,
Yes.
Secretary Kreitzer,
Yes.
Treasurer Bloomfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Nichols,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherwood,
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak,
Yes.
Commissioner Weintraub.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 yeas, 0 nays.
All right. Now we're moving on to our data center presentation by Attorney Thal.
Okay, all right. So if you go to the next page. Yep, so we'll first address, we're first going to address what a data center is. And for the data centers are not anything new. Okay, there are data centers all over the state in terms of location in corporate headquarters. They have data centers in their office buildings might have data centers. You don't even know they exist because of their location, but they tend to be smaller in scale. The big thing that we're dealing with now are what we call hyperscale data centers, which are much, much larger and kind of a new animal to what we're used to seeing. So a data center, what is a data center? Well, it's like a warehouse or a series of warehouses containing computer network systems and servers. It has cooling systems. The servers get very hot, they have to be cooled. So there's cooling systems, battery backup systems, security, normally there's gonna be 24/7 security at the location, and they're gonna have backup generators in case there's power failure and the batteries fail too, or the energy is used up. So these data centers are basically the backbone of our internet, and all the information that's on the internet has to be stored somewhere. So they're stored on these server systems, and usually it's a data center where it's located. What we've seen is a surge in the need for data centers based upon the amount of information that is out there, and AI, which is using tremendous amounts of data and processing power. So we have a couple different types of data centers. We have private data centers, cloud, and co-location. So private data center might be, I just toured a PNC headquarters, and inside their headquarters, they have a data center in there. You wouldn't know it. They're not going to advertise it, but they have it in there. They have water-cooled floors in the data center area. So we have these private data centers. You have cloud data centers, which are going to be things like Microsoft and Facebook and these other companies, or Meta, will have data centers to store information in the cloud. And then you have co-location data centers, which are, say, a developer will come in, they will build a data center and then lease out space in their data center to different users. So we have these different types of data centers. Then we have the big thing is the hyperscale, which is this newer data center that we're seeing to support AI and just the vast amount of information that it has to be stored and processed. And these are massive buildings or campuses dedicated solely to just data processing. And this is mainly what we see in the news. Just for reference, the Saline Township one that has been approved is 1.6 million square feet of data center. And data centers are measured by the amount of megawattage or wattage that they use. So the size of the data center depends on how much energy it takes to operate it. And that data center in Saline Township is 1.4 gigawatts, which is 1,400 megawatts. So it's a huge facility there that's going in. Now, for a point of reference, 1 gigawatt or 1,000 megawatts is the equivalent of powering 800,000 homes. So the energy that's going to be used by that Saline Township facility is going to exceed, what is that, over 1 million homes amount of energy. So these facilities are going to have their own power structures, whether it be, some of them may require small nuclear facilities, some may be using solar, and they might use a whole array of different energy sources, gas power plants, other things to power them. But you can see the tremendous amount of energy they use, when you're talking a million homes amount of energy. So it's really important to understand that that's going to be a major factor when we talk into where they get located, is based upon, those energy needs. And the Saline Township one was, the company applied to the township prohibited it, and then they got sued. And so then they got sued for being exclusionary. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then ultimately they reached a settlement and allowed it to go in through the court. Now, I'm sure the township was probably looking at massive amounts of damages, millions and millions of dollars in damages if they lost that suit. So, they made the decision they made. So that's the hyperscale, and that's really what we're really thinking about. And when we want to talk about regulation, that's what we're really thinking of. Co-location facilities, those are inside a principal building or accessory building, they're multi-tenant. A lot of times you're not even going to know. It's just going to look like an office building, and it's going to have servers in it.
When does it become something that we should try to control?
Well, I think certainly on a larger scale, the hyperscale, we should definitely be looking at, and whether we prohibit or regulate, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, how we go about doing those things. But you certainly don't want to have something like a hyperscale facility come into the township and be unprepared to handle that type of facility. So, we did do a moratorium, so we're in this moratorium period of studying it, understanding it, then determining how we want to handle it for our township. Now, we could still regulate smaller data centers too, if we wanted to, and determine, is it industrial use? Should it be located in an industrial zone? Should it be commercial in some cases, the commercial office in some cases. So, but those tend to be smaller. They don't create the same issues that these large scale ones do. And then you have even smaller centers built close to hubs and activity and end users, they call them edge data centers. So, why is sudden interest in this? Why are we seeing this issue? It's statewide, everybody's concerned about it. Why are we seeing this? Well, part of it is dominated by the surge in AI and kind of the race for artificial intelligence and what countries are going to compete for that and dominate it. And we have a federal executive order from President Trump to dominate the AI industry, to remove barriers to and encourage adoption of AI, to establish minimally burdensome national standard, and allow AI companies to innovate without cumbersome regulation. So we have federal standards that are saying, hey, we want to press for data centers in this country. And then our state government has passed legislation also. In 2024, there's legislation that allows them to have certain sales and use tax abatements for data centers. So both at the federal level, they're encouraging it. At the state level, they're encouraging it and giving them benefits to come here and locate. They have to, for the state benefits, they have to invest a set amount of money, create jobs, and there's other requirements that it's pretty detailed in the statute. But at the same time, we have both the federal government and state government looking at these and trying to promote it. Is this interest sudden? As I mentioned already, we have more than 44 data centers in Michigan of various sizes. So they exist, and there's probably even more smaller ones than that. These are kind of a sizable data centers so that are a data center. So they've been around for many years. Most of the time completely hidden from sight. The hyperscale are really the ones that we want to address that are large land users, potentially large environmental users of water and other things of that sort, and present the real issues. So what do we do now? And some of this we have done, or we're in the process of doing. So first, we need to look at our ordinances, review them, see anything that resembles data center, because they can come in if it allows for, warehousing, things of that sort. They can try to say, oh, we get to fall under warehousing. Right. So it's really important, as you see in this list, we have consider moratoriums. And we've done that part of it, which is really good. We're ahead of the game now with our moratorium in place. We can look at our ordinance, take it into consideration during this process and see what needs to be revised, depending on what we determine. Next, really what I want to address too is exclusionary zoning. So the question of, can we just prohibit them? Now, so we saw what happened in Saline Township. They just prohibited it, and then get sued. And, facing probably, with the size of these projects, they could have possibly been facing, hundreds of millions of dollars in damages if the company wins their suit. And so the risk is tremendous. And we can only be excluded, so typically you can't be exclusionary, but you can under certain circumstances. And so that's part of our process here. If we want to be able to prohibit, I'm not saying that that's where we end up, but if we did end up to try to prohibit it, we have to do our homework to do that so that we can protect ourselves if we were to be sued. You don't want to be sued and then not have done your homework. Saline Township was right out of the gate, probably unprepared for that type of application. We want to make sure we're prepared. So if the ultimate goal at the end is prohibition, then we want to make sure we're protected. So I just want to read the exclusionary zoning to you. So a zoning ordinance shall not have the effect of totally prohibiting the establishment of a land use in the presence of a demonstrated need in the township or surrounding area, unless a location does not exist within the municipality where the use may be appropriately located. So we already know that, okay, if we're prohibiting it in the presence of a demonstrated need, well, we have the federal government saying there's a need for it. We have our state government saying we have a need for it. There's going to be a demonstrated need for it. So where we fall is with unless a location does not exist in the municipality where the use may be appropriately located. And so that's part of the homework is there a location in the township where this type of use would be permitted? And if not, at the end of our journey, maybe that's the conclusion we reach. Or if we think that there are locations that are acceptable, what are the type of regulations that would allow for it? Or maybe you put in regulations, and have other restrictions on it based upon the amount of land associated with it. But that's all through this process. Where you end up with, that's not my call, that's going to be your recommendation to the township board at the end of the process of where we end up. But as you can see, it's not easy to just ban it. People would just ban it. Well, it's not so easy, but if we do our homework, and that's where we end up, then we're at least in a defensible position. I'm not going to go into the moratoriums because,
We're already there.
I recommend that we do it, but we're already there. So we're doing really well in that regard, that we have that in place. So let's go into the zoning considerations. And if you have any questions on this stuff, just stop me and ask. So the first thing, for zoning consideration is site selection. So again, we're looking at what areas of the township might be appropriate for this use or inappropriate for this use. Site selection, is it industrial? Is it commercial? Is it ag? It seems to me that this is more of an industrial type of use. Mm-hmm. And it could be commercial, like with the PNC offices, that it's inside their office and they have these.
There's a video online from, I can't pronounce it, Dowagiac, Michigan.
Dowagiac?
Thank you. Yep. I'm like, I can't pronounce that. But they only have a 28 to 30 megawatt facility right now, and the noise was awful. There was a man standing outside of his home and the noise was terrible, and they're going to grow that to a 300 to 340. But even at that, that's nothing compared to the scale you talk about. And
right.
You could, it was.
Right. So these are considerations that we have to think about, talk about, determine, how you regulate that, as unfortunately they must not have regulated that use very well.
I have a question about data centers. In the past, I know that National Bank had a data center out on 9th Street, but it was right there with the bank.
Yeah.
How do they use them? In today's world, they put these buildings out in the middle of nowhere. Who uses it?
Well, so those buildings in the middle of nowhere are typically going to be used by, these larger companies. It could be a developer that builds it and then rents out a space to different entities that want to use the data storage. A lot of times it's just, there's so much data on the internet, it's got to be stored somewhere. So it gets stored in these facilities.
They're connected by fiber optic to to the backbone. And so
Yeah.
that data is available anywhere on the planet if you have proper connectivity.
Okay.
It's like Swish up against Township, how they got one.
Yeah, exactly.
How they're so big and how they're.
Yeah, that pyramid,
One.
yeah, if you've ever seen the pyramid in
Off
Gaines
Hill 6
Township,
right
yeah,
there.
is a data center.
What,
So it's kind of, the first thing is like site selection, you know, is it industrial, is it commercial, is it ag? I mean, they're trying to put it on ag properties, which are where all the land is.
Right.
But is it appropriate at all for ag properties? You know, it's
No,
pretty
but-
much an industrial type of use.
Again, we don't have the size of ag properties in some places where it would be. I mean, I think you'd still hear it.
You're gonna need hundreds of acres, you know, for a hyperscale kind of facility. You know, I think the other one might be 250, don't quote me on that,
I mean,
but
this
it's
one
a
that
lot
was
of
noisy
acres.
is on 40, so.
Yeah,
What kind of setbacks are they looking at?
so those are things that we have to address, kind of like, so I'll get into some of these issues as we go. So, you know, the size of the parcels depend on the scale of the data center. You know, if it's a smaller one, 40 acres maybe, you know, or larger, it's going to be hundreds of acres. They're going to place them where there's resources. So namely, they have to have electricity. They're going to put them by substations. They're going to have areas for, you know, bringing in large amounts of power. So they're going to be located near large power lines with excess capacity. There's got to be fiber to the property. There's going to have to be high-speed fiber so that they can get their information in and out of there. And then water supply can be a big issue, because if it's water-cooled, there's different ways. There's closed-loop systems, but there's also open air that can use tremendous amounts of water. And so that might be an issue where they want to locate near water supplies. So there's a number of potential harms, you know, by these data centers, like we've started to talk about. You've got water usage. You know, they can use tremendous amounts of water, just incredible amounts. And then there's a lot of concern then, you know, what it's doing to the aquifer if they're drawing it. Even if it's from a city system, it's still got to come from an aquifer somewhere. And if they just use normal cooling, like cooling towers and so forth, that uses a tremendous amount of water through evaporation. They lose a lot. Now, they can use closed loop systems, which use less water. And, you know, you can even, as we talk about regulations, you can even require that they not use water at all to cool, that they have to use air cooling. The trade-off of that is they use more electricity if they're air cooling, but they're not harming the aquifers and using, you know, more water if they're doing that. So you have water usage, you have electric needs. So they're going to use, like we said, tremendous, crazy amounts of electricity, you know, 1 million homes worth of electricity. So what does that do? People are really concerned, does that affect our rates and things of that sort? One of the things is that they are supposed to be totally responsible for supplying their own electricity and the costs of doing that. So that is, you know, it's an issue, but they're supposed to address it. Electric rates, again, that's kind of the concern, is like, okay, they're using all this electricity, our rates are going to go up. I think the studies have shown there's some places where it's impacted rates quite a bit, other places no. So I think that that's dependent on whether or not they have to and are required to supply their own electricity. There's the noise issue that we've talked about, extreme noise issues, and whether or not you can regulate, though. We can regulate noise, but those are considerations. If you're putting something together, you would have sound regulations, you know, at the property line that don't allow them to exceed a certain sound level. I mean, that's pretty normal and pretty good way to control the noise from the property. So like when you say it's this loud at this point, you know, if you have good regulations in place, you're not going to allow for that. They're not going to be able to either they can't do it, or they got to figure out noise mitigation and solve their noise issue. Security, lighting, you know, we address those types of issues, but that's certainly a potential harm. The impact on the environment, again, you know, water usage, other, you know, loss of green space, there could be other environmental issues associated with the property they want to locate on. And then you have visual impact. If they want to stick these things in an agricultural area where there's nothing else but, farmland, you have these big warehouse, industrial complexes basically in those areas. So that's certainly a potential harm. Then you've got security risks. They are at risk for somebody to attack the data center because of information contained there, and the potential, if they were to damage it, what it would do to the internet and things of that sort. Hazardous response, hazardous response, what happens if it catches fire, things of that sort. Our ability to fight a fire at those locations. There's tremendous construction issues. These things take years to build, and they're just, the amount of trucks and traffic and so forth created by the construction create big issues. And then ultimately, you have issues with what happens if they go belly up or abandon the facility, and you have this giant industrial complex in your agricultural zone. How do you deal with those things? So that kind of takes us into regulations and how we regulate them. So any regulations that we do have to be reasonable. So that's the standard. If we were to be sued in court, are those are our regulations reasonable, or are they not? So it's not the toughest standard in the world to just show reasonableness. You have to show basis for it, but if it's irrational or something, then it could be struck down. Regulations, the prohibition. Okay, can we prohibit it? Well, if we go through our process and determine that there's no land appropriate in our township for it, then I believe that we could have a supportable case to prohibit. The types of data centers. Do we regulate just, are we looking at maybe just hyperscale data centers? Or are we going to think about smaller data centers? Like you're saying, there's even so much noise produced by even a smaller one. So even that at a minimum probably should be regulated in some way. What zoning districts would we allow for them? Or, in all cases, I would say it has to be a special land use. If you do allow for them, it would be a special land use so that you have more controls over how they operate and their impact on the land and neighboring properties. When we look at zoning districts, do we allow some of them into, industrial zone property? Do you allow like a smaller one into industrial zone? Or even a larger one, and say it's industrial. We're not going to let it be in an ag zone, something like that. Those are things to think about. We'd have escrow. If you do allow for them, obviously they're going to have to pay all their costs of coming forward to the board and having you review their applications and considerations regarding their application, engineering costs, environmental costs for review. They need to present an energy plan. So we talk about the vast amount of energy they use. We'd have to make sure that they have a plan that present to us. They're going to have to present something to the Michigan Public Service Commission, who's in control of utilities and rates, but we still want to know what their energy plan is. How are you going to be supplying your own energy so that the public's not at risk of subsidizing your facility? Emergency response plans, fire response plans, are we properly able to handle those? They're going to have to provide those types of plans, and you'd have to review those and make sure that you can properly handle the facility. If not, then it's not going to be appropriate. Environmental studies, certainly, these are things that we'd require of them to bring forward. Environmental impact studies for use of their property, then we would have those things reviewed by our own engineers to determine if they're proper or not. Traffic studies, construction plans, these are things that we'd want to definitely regulate in terms of those projects. Very important to have a decommissioning plan and bonds for performance to make sure that you don't end up with something half constructed, and the market changes or whatever, or it's built and then something else newer and better comes up and they figure out a different way and they just want to abandon it, we want to make sure that they remove everything or repurpose it. You know, they could repurpose it into, you know, if it's essentially a warehouse, into other uses like we've seen at Midlink, you know, things of that sort. But we can require a plan to have that put into place. We can also require bonding to make sure that we're protected. If it
Does the bond apply, like, if they go belly up?
Yeah, so a bond would be, you know, if they abandon the use, if they go belly up, there would be, we would have engineers tell us what the cost of remediating the property would be, and it'd be a substantial amount they would have to have a bond for. But then an insurance company basically is, a bond company they pay a certain amount for that bond, and then we'd have to make sure that it's updated, you know, every few years probably, and then also, you know, that it's in a sufficient amount to do what we want done to the property. Other regulations, we'd have lighting plans and limitations. Obviously, we would require like sharp cutoff lighting so that not just lighting up the sky, because they're going to want lighting on their building for security purposes, but they're going to have to make sure it's not just lighting up the whole area. Setbacks, so again, you know, like how far are they going to have to be set back from the road? How far set back from other homes and other properties? All those things are going to be types of restrictions that as we go down the road, what we'd be looking at to make sure that it doesn't have noise impact on the neighboring property, that doesn't have vibration impacts. There's also sometimes vibration associated with these uses. So, you know, setbacks will be important. Noise mitigation, you know, whether they put in attenuation walls and other things, but they'd have to control their noise. You say it can be 55 decibels at the property line, you know, they're going to have to meet that or they're not going to be able to be located. You know, so we can do noise mitigation requirements, screening requirements. We can address the water usage issue, which is a big issue. You know, if they're going to be tapping into drilling their own wells or using city water in any case, it's still a big issue with the water usage. So you could prohibit water cooling and say you got to do electric cooling and then you've got to cover all your costs of electricity. Now that means more fans and more noise potentially, but things that they have to control that do, you know, I would always think that you wouldn't want to allow water cooling just because of the amount of water they use. Now they can use a closed loop system which uses less water and it just recycles through the system, but they still, you know, have to fill it every once in a while. And it just seems like a better way is to just say that, you know, you have to cool your building in a different way and you're responsible for all the costs to do that. Height limitations, you know, what can, you'd have to look at the limitations on your fire department on how tall of a building they can fight a fire on and how big these buildings might be, and also visual, you know, how it's going to look visually and how tall the buildings should be, especially if they're located in an ag zone. And then just kind of any public health, safety, welfare restrictions and conditions that you might put on them. You know, so all those things together, you know, as you start looking at it, you really need to look at your township, how it's developed, what areas of your township could they go in and try to, and ultimately, you know, people sell their property to them. I mean, they piece together these large parcels of property. Do you even have parcels, you know, where they could be located? You know, if they piece them together. So you really need to look at your master plan, your current zoning plan for your township, how things have developed, and determine whether these locations and setbacks and other things even allow it to be located in your township. You know, and also the location to, what we talked about, fiber lines, substations, and high energy lines are all important. So all these things we need to look at our township and see, you know, is there an area that's appropriate? And, you know, and then do you regulate, prohibit large scale? Do you regulate, you know, smaller scale, and how we address that? And then finally, I'll just mention the monetary benefits. And again, that's an issue for the board to think about in terms of these types of facilities. They are substantial investments. So like the Saline Township Data Center, I think, is around $7 billion. You know, so your taxable value would be far more, even with an abatement, than it is now, which does give opportunity to levy less tax, less special assessment on other members of the public. It can be used to reduce taxation because your tax base is going to would grow exponentially to have such a facility. Not saying that should be your consideration, but it does need to be mentioned that that is probably the only benefit of having these facilities is the increase in taxable value to the township. So with that, any questions?
I have a question, Attorney Law. So at the Capitol Conference that I went to back in March 16th, Sarah Mills mentioned that you were working on sample ordinances. I cannot find any sample ordinances where I'm having a hard time finding some for data centers. So I'm wondering how you're coming on that project.
Yeah, I'd like to have it done within the next couple weeks.
Okay.
So there will be a sample ordinance out there that we can also look at. And that'll be put out to the general public when we're done. But it's a difficult thing to put together.
Do you set the setbacks by the noise level, or how do you determine, because the size of the facility is going to determine how noisy it is?
Right, so you're going to want it, though, the size of the facility will determine how noisy it is, but if you say this is a setback, we're trying to reduce the impact to neighboring properties and neighboring property owners. And so you're going to want some big setbacks from these things. And so, and also it's just a visual, it's also just the impact of a huge industrial complex, and being near that, and the scale of that compared to, say, your home or something, and just being overshadowed by something like that. So you'd want big setbacks to push it back. And, if they can't meet, if they're still like using so much power and fans and generators and things that they can't meet the noise, that's their problem. I mean, you're going to want a set noise level at the property line, no matter what that setback is. You're going to say it can't be louder than X, and that's their problem. If they need to set it back even further, they need to set it back even further because they're going to have to meet those sound restrictions. I think the setback's going to be more for, just scale in how it impacts the neighboring properties.
How big did you say that one in Saline, how much space did that take up?
That was
1.6 million square feet.
Yeah.
How many acres is that? Like as far as the size?
43,000 some feet per square feet.
I mean, you look at
43,560.
You look at the new landscape forum building, there's 300,000 square feet that's going up over there, and it's absolutely huge. So that's 1/5 of what that size is. So you could only imagine, and I don't think we have land anywhere in Comstock to put something up that large. The only
with setbacks.
Yeah. And
not for a hyperscale anyways.
No, not for a hyperscale. The only place that I could think that even would work would be the industrial thing down at where the old consumers' power is. It's away from everything. You got the river, you got the power lines. I mean, they produced electricity there for 100 years, but I can't see it.
They'd probably dry up the river.
Yeah, well, I like the closed loop system. You have to use water once in a while, but then you have to discharge that water. And what's that discharge water going to do to the water that you're putting it in?
Yeah, that doesn't feel good.
So
It's going to be hot.
I mean, it took them a long time to clean up this river with all the paper mills and everything for a lot of years. So
it's still not clean.
No,
It's not clean.
There's nothing good about these things, I can tell you that.
till your cell phone goes bad.
With these monstrous valuations, all this equipment depreciates incredibly quickly. And so you may start out with $1 billion, But in 10 years, it's probably down to what the empty building is worth.
Well, I would just say that they would, when they replace equipment,
Well,
it goes back up. So as they have to replace servers, it's an addition and goes back to value, but yeah, point taken.
The amount of noise will depend on a number of factors too, the type of cooling, and also whether they have on-site generators. Most of them do have to have some kind of on-site generators for backup, and those can be monstrously noisy. They involve they can involve fuel storage or requirements for large amounts of natural gas if they're going to use that for generators. So
They do have ways to quiet generators, though.
well, noise is a problem with these things.
Listen
Yes.
to this. Like, this is ridiculous. Maybe it'll play. No, it's just gonna give me, here. Did you want that outside all the time you're home? That's awful. That's awful.
Okay. That was very interesting, Rob. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Lots to consider in terms of how we structure that.
Will you bring your sample ordinances? Will we be?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That's where we're going to start.
Yep.
Yeah, gotta start somewhere. All right. Any other questions for Rob? Comments on that? Thank you so much, Attorney Paul. Appreciate you. Nope. All right, then we are over to the housing study final draft.
Yes, so the final draft, or the draft was not ready for public viewing yet, so that's why it's not included in the packet, but you all had it separately in an email. Some of you came and got a physical copy of it. So Emily Petz is looking for final feedback and comment suggestions on the final draft that was sent to you all, so that she can quickly implement it in and then hopefully have the final draft ready by the end of the month. So if anybody has read these 75 pages of the document and has any comments for her, please let me know. If you want a physical copy, let me know. I can get one for you Monday. And then hopefully by that Friday, you can also email me separately. Of course, don't email me all in a group, your comments, so that we can get them to her immediately.
I would like a physical copy.
Okay.
Don't make it.
Okay. I can get those Monday.
I would also like a copy.
Anybody who didn't get one? Greg, you as well?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Attorney Thal, there was some, I know we had talked about like what we have to do from a grant standpoint with this. Did you find anything out about that?
Casey has looked into that. They do expect us to do some type of implementation of the study for the grant.
I think that's what I'll get to.
Guys?
So that's kind of important as to what we can do. They gave us an extension of time to look at it to
July 20th.
July 20th. Now, to incorporate into your master plan, that takes a lot of time to go through the master plan, even amendment process. It has to go to the township board. They have to do a notice of intent to plan. That notice has to be sent out to neighboring municipalities. Then you need to.
I don't know that that's the route I would want to go regardless.
What I was talking with Casey about is the potential that maybe the PUD amendments that we're making would be sufficient to be incorporating that into our ordinance, because it does allow for multiple types of homes. It goes across different zoning districts, and it does have density bonuses within it. So maybe that itself, you know, from what they're saying is we need different types of housing, we need more housing, different types of housing, lower cost housing. The PUD option does give us the ability to have that flexibility into our ordinance, and I think the changes that we're making, we could say, are implementing the plan. So I think that that's one possibility that we could look at through, you know, to say that we're implementing it. To add it to the master plan is not really feasible within that time frame that they've given us.
I think that Ms. just said, I forgot the email said, was it master plan and zoning ordinance? But I'll see if there's any wiggle room with that to say, here's our zoning ordinance updated. And if they say no master plan needed to, I need to ask for an extension for another 12 months. If that's a requirement, that can't be met. So yeah, so anybody have any feedback from anybody view the study? If not, we can just hold comments until next Friday. And just email me if you guys like it, if you don't like it, if you have any additions.
I'd like to do as little as possible, but, you know, if the PUD would help out, if our changes to the PUD help us out in that regard, that's great. There were, you know, a bunch of action plans that were outlined. We could look at some of them might be implementable, or some of them might be at least appropriate for us to undertake. So if we wanted to set aside a workshop maybe, or some work time to go through that list of action items and we can maybe pick and choose to see if some of them are appropriate. The other thing, you know, the revisions that we made about a year ago to the R1C certainly moved in the direction that she was requesting. Yes. And it might be a little ex post facto, but, you know, maybe we could emphasize that we've already made a major step in that direction, whether it was wise or not.
Okay.
You're right, Joe.
Okay, so yeah, just please review the copy. Maybe after the meeting, I can print some out for people who want the physical copies. So then hopefully in a week I can get emails to give to Emily. She just wants to see if you guys are happy with it, if there's anything she needs to add or take out, so she can finally get the final copy and release it to the public. So that's the
what is, like, let's say that we don't love parts of it. Do we have to love it for it to be released? Like, because are we committing to it?
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
So I don't know that we're going to be able to commit to it without having discussion as a group. Like, I don't know that we're going to be able to all email you independently and say, yes, we're attached to this.
Well, if we get, I don't know if everybody will like it, everybody might not like it. So I don't know, just to start the discussion, I was hoping that we would have that today, but I don't know if it's a big document, so of course we probably can't, because they probably didn't have the chance to read it. But I guess if you all tell me your thoughts, and then maybe if there's enough people opposed to it, or there's enough people who are like, I hate this, and then I can see, but.
So brutal honesty is what you're looking for?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully you like it, but not.
And there's lots of cool data in here. And,
Clear.
yeah.
Gotcha. So we'll just table it until probably next meeting then.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Great. All right. We're moving on to citizen comment. All of the same rules as previously stated apply. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Lynette McCurley. I live at 5679 Susan Avenue. And the first thing I would like to say is I wish that you would make everybody comply with stating their name and address when they come up, because you might know who they are, but I, sitting out here as a citizen, don't know and would like to know in case I want to talk to them about anything of their comments. The microphone placement in front of you has been good tonight, except for the attorney and Casey. And I wear hearing aids, and I have my speakers up and my Bluetooth on, and I wish that could be improved, because I would like to know that I'm hearing you accurately. the ordinance that were brought up tonight, and you cleaned up language like you did in the soil friend items. I really appreciated that, especially after going to board meetings and hearing all the fighting and bickering back and forth and not getting anywhere with what they end up with. I appreciate that you're willing to work with each other and make resolutions and do those things. I basically should have put this with the microphone placement, but I wonder if we should have a sound study, because it seems like things go up here with the shape of this building. And that, again, makes it really difficult. I want to come up and sit right in front of you so that I know I'm getting it right. I appreciate the thought of putting the words up there, but until the attorney's presentation with the Microsoft or the PowerPoint came up, the print is way too small. I could never see it. My eyeglasses person couldn't ever get my power enough to read them. So it's a nice thought, but they need to be bigger so that we can actually read them. I wonder why, and this may be just because I'm the age that I am, but I wonder why there aren't printed copies of things. I got on the internet and found the agendas and tried to follow through my phone, but with the hearing and the visual and that, it's just a lot to do. And I wish that the agendas gave a little bit more, like when it said soil friends, it might say that you were going to discuss this about soil friends, or the housing thing, what you were going to discuss about that. Because again, with the hearing and the visual, I'm not sure I understood everything that's going on, even though I took my time to be here. The data center presentation I liked, but if that were in print too, then when I as a citizen come to your meetings, I would know.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. We hit your 3 minutes.
See, I just wrote down too many notes. Thank
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Clary. I'm from Vicksburg. 15 minutes before the meeting tonight, I got a message, someone saying that the data center presentation was on. I was actually in Pavilion Township at my mother and father-in-law's. We had family in town, but it's a matter that's very close to my heart, especially I did a lot of research when we found out one wanted to come into Pavilion Township. And so I came over here. Normally I would have more notes in front of me, but I dropped what I was doing and left right away. And so one of the things I wanted to mention is with a best center being here, typically data centers really look for things like that because it gives backup power supply. So I think it's very important that whatever regulation you do is very thoughtful. One of my other concerns is when I look at other communities where they may have regulations in place, it seems like there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Ask for forgiveness after you do it. It's better to ask forgiveness afterwards. And so one of the things that concerns me, because I view you guys as my neighbor. I'm down in Vicksburg. Okay, there might be a couple townships I drive through, but we're all Southwest Michigan. Like, I travel to all these different communities with my family to do stuff. Is that what teeth do you have to ensure that your regulations are followed? In Tennessee, there was a data center there, I believe it was Grok, and they started using their generators all the time, and it was polluting the air and making people sick. And they found that out by citizens putting up drones, and they ended up having to do heat-seeking drones to see that they were running. And then after the fact, after they got caught, they went and got all the backup permits. A lot of times, if you get a massive corporation coming in somewhere, they're okay with paying a fine because it's more lucrative to pay a fine. And so I just ask whatever regulations you come up with, that you ensure that there's actually teeth to persuade them to follow your rules and not just give them a slap on the wrist and they be okay with dealing with it after the fact. One other thing that I would consider is I live on a farm. My son is the 4th generation on it, so I care deeply about that land and just all the rural community around, I mean, everywhere. But if for some reason there was something like a tornado that would go and pick up equipment there, and if it were to be dropped on someone's property, I don't know what could leach into the soil, especially if there's a heavy rain. I haven't heard of anything like insurance policies, but one of the things I would also consider looking into regulations is how to protect surrounding communities and not have to wait till after the fact to try to find a way to clean it up. Because if that was in my neighborhood, that's something I would be very concerned with. And as things go on, we keep getting more and more severe weather. You guys know about it just as well, if not more, than I do down in Vicksburg. So thank you for your time.
Hi. Yeah, data centers. That's actually where I first met Rob, because there was a pavilion data center that was going in, and what was going on there is, and Rob touched on that a little bit, is that many times they will have developers come in, get all of the regulations and everything passed, and then they will just hand it off to the new owner of the land. And that was exactly what was going to happen there. They wouldn't tell us. We actually met with the developers. They wouldn't tell us who the developer was. And that's very commonplace. And now Microsoft themselves have started it, and what I would encourage is to not sign any NDAs, because those will be brought in the event that something does come and happen, is that planning commissions and township members will be required to sign NDAs if they want to continue to do business or however it is with them. And so I would encourage everybody not to do those things. In regards to, there's so much. Like I even brought my stuff that I took to Portage, because I've been to Portage, I've been to Pavilion, and here, and that was part of our primary concern with the BESS, is that the BESS stations are actually third-party energy resellers. So none of them are actually in use to provide stability to the grid. There's actually not one in existence that does that. They actually resell the energy. We have peak times and off times. When the data center is on peak time, the BESS will sell the off-peak time energy to the data center. And both the BESS and the data center get discounted rates. We had a discussion, you guys had mentioned about how large is Saline. Their project is on 250 acres. We have 9,200 acres of farmland here in Comstock, which is more than sufficient for them to put something in there if people offer them $1 million an acre or something else. $14 million in taxable revenue is essentially what Saline will get after giving $452 million in tax abatements. Michigan provides a 6% sales tax removal. So the data centers don't have to pay the 6% sales tax, and that's typically where you would get, as the state and local areas, you would get that taxable revenue. You don't actually get that. What Saline Township is actually going to get, because the state will actually take a majority of that, is $1.6 million a year. That is how much taxable revenue that they will actually get. Now, yes, that is significant compared to what they get right now, but for a $7 billion to 1.6 that they're giving up, this is a drop in the bucket for them. They do not care. And that 30 megawatt sound that you hear in Dowagiac, at 340, when it gets to its maximum size, you will be able to hear that 2.5 miles away. And these things heat the ground. There's a new study that these things are starting to become little heat islands because they heat the ground so much. So there's not enough time in the day for me to go over everything, but thank you. If the board is interested, I can give my little note things and put it into the meeting packets if you guys want it. It's just the stuff that I had that gives notes. No, you can take. I got too many of them.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to updates from other boards.
We haven't had a board meeting, so I have nothing.
All right, training updates?
Yes, so I have been in contact with Sarah Mills and her, I don't know what to call her, associate, Madeline. And so right now we are on the books for a May 14th at 6 p.m. solar and wind presentation. We'll confirm that as it gets closer, but that's where we're looking at. And April 29th, and so last meeting I spoke about a countywide data center presentation. That'll be April 29th at 11 a.m., hosted by Sarah Mills, or NU Mitch. They will give me the link as it gets closer, so I'll kick that out to you when I get the registration link. So it's data centers again, but can't hurt to hear the same thing more than once.
It's going to be virtual, correct?
Yes, virtual.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. And that is all I have for training updates.
Informational?
Okay, so when you guys came to your seats, you had 2 emails here, one from Mark Zadati, who was just here for his rezone, and then a Margaret Thurmond email. So when at the beginning of the year, you, especially Commissioner Weintraub, voiced that he would like to hear what residents are saying to me. So in the past year, I have said like, oh, I've heard, or oh, this has come to me. So now when residents approach me and they come in person or the phone call and they voice concerns like this, I say, send me an email or come to the meeting. I usually always say come to the meeting, but they don't ever show up. So I now say, give me an email, I'll pass it along. So I have received both of these this week, along with another phone call that did not follow up with me. People are voicing concerns that they cannot put structures on vacant land. And I know we talked about this last December, and we decided we don't want structures on vacant land. These are just 2 people who have come to me this past week saying that it's unfair that they own property and pay taxes and cannot do what they want with it. And that's what the rules are. So there is a desire for people to put sheds and structures on vacant land when we currently prohibit it. So not sure if we want to take that back up, but I do know, I also got a phone call from somebody else who owns 10 acres and wants to put a pole barn up, and I'm like, you can't do that. And so they're like, I pay taxes, it's my land, but.
This is a 10-acre parcel?
So this one, I don't know exactly how big, I don't know how big these ones are, but the
Variety of them.
The phone call I received was a 10-acre one. And he's like, I can't store my Camaro. I'm like, no, you can't.
10-acre parcel, this is residentially zoned.
Yes. Yes.
And they want to put a pole barn or an accessory structure?
With no home on it.
With no home.
Mm-hmm.
I still am no. I don't.
Yeah, we're not any different from a lot of communities around us, though.
Correct, but.
Yeah, nobody else does it. Why should we?
Correct. So I'm just saying, they came to me and you guys said you wanted to hear about this.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, and it's worth discussing. When a parcel is that large, should there be an accommodation?
Well, let's put it on the schedule then.
Well,
We can, Casey and I can work on working it in. We've got,
Yeah, we're busy.
a few things on our plate at the moment.
I still don't think so. I owned 15 acres in Pavilion Township, and they said, you can put a pole barn up, but you got a year to build a house.
Right.
And if you don't, you got to tear the pole barn down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think location matters.
Well, I still don't think we should do it. I don't know.
Can it be a special use?
I was gonna say,
So
yes.
that could it be reviewed on a case-by-case basis? With some, standards and criteria that make it possible in the right circumstance?
Well, if it's an ag,
I
they
think
can do whatever.
Right.
I think this sounds like if we want to have some further discussion, Casey and I will work on when it fits in the agenda, and we'll get to it.
Perfect. Just wanted to pass along what I heard from residents with actual documents. Moving on, next item, PC emails. You had this document at your seat as well. I received a quote. It will cost about $432 for you all to have emails. So $6 a month per user. So $36 a month, and then times that by 12, $432.
Does it have to go through a special server or something?
Yeah,
Can't it just be a Google?
It's
Well, it has to be a government
It has to be a
one.
speed.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
So I
Happens to be.
I'm okay with it just being Amber, and she can dole out the information to us if she wants.
With that kind of expense, I don't need my own government email,
I don't either,
but I think she should have.
but I do think Amber should.
The public
Gotcha.
should have a way to reach the chairman of all of
Okay.
zoning board.
And I was curious about that, Commissioner Weintraub. So I looked at other communities, and Portage, K Township, Richland, they do not have their PC chair on the website. Will that create a middleman? Because anything that goes to Amber will need to come to me anyway. So I don't know if that would just create an extra buffer to get to me, or if that would be what we think about that.
I mean, I think that an email is a good idea from Attorney Thalls.
Oh, yeah, on the website, like, because I know you guys talked about wanting to be on the website, and I don't know if it's.
I will tell you, I was cruising around on the website because I was pulling minutes and stuff today, and there are spots where you're not even listed in your position, it's still your predecessor, so there's just a lot of information that needs to get cleaned up on the website. Like, that might be.
Okay.
Start one.
Okay, but I was just, so if we get you an email, if you were on the website, I don't know if that's.
I would defer to others on that, I don't have a strong opinion.
Okay.
You do have to be careful that it's not then used for ex parte communications
Right.
of things that,
Going to Cancun, going on vacation.
More like an
That would be ex parte.
More like an
Because the
applicant.
applicants need to reach out to.
I can actually email about going to Cancun, that doesn't impact my.
Email?
It's, the way I look at it, it's more for
Right.
communications when Casey is sending something out or the township is sending us something out, or if I want to communicate with the chair on something, that it's through a township email address. It's not her personal email that we're using, and opening up your personal email
Right, I
to
would prefer that
potential
as well.
FOIA
Yes.
requests. So it's really a good idea to have, whether, you might not want to put it on the website probably, for planning commission should say who the chair is. Doesn't have to give your email address on there. It should give the zoning administrator's name and email address, because they shouldn't just be directly emailing the chair, but that's just a thought.
Gotcha. So I will get back with our IT man and say Amber needs the email. Don't know if that should be like just chair@comstock.my.gov or should be you. We'll figure out those details. Whatever preference you have.
I don't have a preference.
And then the rest of the PC members, we will just forego emails if that's okay.
I think.
I mean, we could probably afford it. We could find a way.
I think it should say chair, because the chair could move.
Change.
time to-
Correct.
We don't all need it, because Jimmy and I are all done at the end of the year. And
Yeah,
Okay.
chair
so
sounds
I don't need one.
appropriate, yeah.
Perfect. We will go ahead with that. And then my last informational action item. If you remember, Tim Kearney had 2 requests, the food truck and then the DHS housing for King Highway and River Street. He went in front of the township board on Monday requesting a fee waiver. However, they decided to not require an application and direct the planning commission to take this action on. So the planning commission now has the instructions to create a use in Comstock Center or in the ordinance for an office space that can also be used to house emergency placements for children.
Great.
So I don't know where we want to start with that. I'm thinking I'll probably ask my DHS contact for a detailed narrative of what she wants, and that we can go from there. And then we can get that, and I can say, here we go, and begin discussions. So we got a lot to tackle.
So we have to create a definition then,
Definition,
and standards and restrictions and that kind of stuff. Okay.
and zoning
So,
district.
yeah, we have to start with knowing what they want.
Yes. Yep. So I'll email her, and then we'll go from there. We can look ahead to the April 23rd meeting. I know previously I said I might not be able to make it, but plans adjusted, I can be here. And so the 23rd, we have a rezone request for Mike Fisher, who built Weather Vane, if you all know him. He owns 42 acres just by Campbell Lake, and he wants to get that rezoned from residential to ag. So he'll be here for his rezone request on the 23rd. That's the only applicant-based item I have thus far. I guess I'll get with Chair Lawrence to see what else we can have on there. But, so probably some of these other side quests we discussed.
Well, we have to reschedule the public hearing.
UD.
Yeah. So that needs to be on there for sure.
Beautiful. That's it for me. Thank you, guys.
All right, planning commissioner comments. We'll start with you, Larry.
I'm good.
Bob?
I've said enough tonight.
I'm good.
Joseph? Jimmy?
I'd like to say, I heard from the township board meeting from Treasurer Bloomfield There's some ordinances that are outdated and other stuff that we need to work on. And just letting Casey know if there's something out there, we could have a filler come in to make our meetings better and we could start working on this. I thought that would be great to add. Thank you.
Sandy?
I agree with our resident who spoke tonight. Sometimes I think even on the township board, I know it needs work, that our agendas need to be more transparent so people actually know what we are working on. So I'd like to see that. But thank you, Casey, for all your work. And you too, Amber.
Well, I don't have anything either. I think excited to have the landscaping stuff moving forward. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.